What is going on, YouTube? Running Gun Sports back here with another video today. It's our weekly college football news update. Very slow week for college football news as far as recruiting and any other sort of news. So today we are going to be reacting to 24/7 Sports post-spring top 10 preseason list. And then we're going to be releasing ours and giving you our thoughts on theirs and telling you why we have certain people at certain spots on ours and things we disagree on with 24/7 Sports' their list. So with that being said, subscribe, like, share this to your friends, and follow our social media pages at runninggun_sports on Instagram and at runninggunsports on TikTok. And let's get right into the video with a little bit of recruiting news from this week. Five-star offensive tackle Josh Connerly Jr. from Rainier Beach High School in Seattle, Washington has announced his top 12 schools: USC, UCLA, Michigan, Texas, Oklahoma, Alabama, Auburn, Oregon, and Washington. Is the number one player out of Washington. He's 6'5", 275 pounds. Big pickup for anyone who gets him. Four-star running back from Suffolk, Virginia, has announced his top 10 schools: Ole Miss, Michigan, Florida, Virginia Tech, Alabama, North Carolina, Auburn, Oregon, Virginia, and Penn State. So with that being said, that's really all we have for our recruiting news today. So is why we're going to be moving into our top 20, or excuse me, our top 10 preseason picks for post spring. So we're going to talk about 24/7 Sports, and then give you our thoughts on each team at each spot and what moves should be made and whatnot, and then we're going to release ours. So at number one, 24/7 Sports has Alabama, and not a bad pick in my opinion. And we have uh, Oklahoma at number one in our list, and I think that really it's just because Oklahoma is returning a lot more players, and Bryce Young did look very promising in the spring game, and I think that those teams are interchangeable at 1 and 2, so I think that that's a very good pick for 24/7 Sports to have Oklahoma at 1. Obviously, Spencer Rattler returning that offense is going to be very good next year, and I think that right now they've got to be the favorite for a national title with just all these guys coming back, and the experience is going to matter. Alabama has just as good players, but they don't have the experience, and we see it happen in the college level and the NFL. Experience really, truthfully, does matter, and I think that we'll see really how much it actually does this year if Oklahoma somehow will beat Alabama, or if they play each other, or if Alabama beats Oklahoma. Maybe the experience doesn't matter as much as some may think it does. So at number two, 24/7 Sports has Oklahoma. As I mentioned, we have Alabama at number two. So either way, like I mentioned, two teams are interchangeable. And I think really, if both those teams can win the games they need to this season, Oklahoma has a tendency of losing some in-conference games that they shouldn't lose. But I think that if these teams can stay on track, I think that they're honestly on a collision course to face each other in the national title in Indianapolis this year, and that would be just such a great game. And I think that that's going to be a great game to watch. And Lincoln Riley's never won a national championship, and Nick Saban obviously has won 7 of them, so it'd be really interesting to see. At number three, 21st 7 Sports has Clemson. And in my opinion, I think that Clemson, they're going to have a bad year this year. I don't think they'll even win the ACC. And I think that North Carolina is who we have at number three. And I think that North Carolina is going to be the team to shock Clemson this year. And I think that really that North Carolina is returning so many players. And I think that Clemson loses a lot of their players, their best players they lose this year, and especially Trevor Lawrence, the leader of that team, possibly the greatest Clemson player of all time, and at Travis Etienne, ACC record holder, all-time leading rusher for ACC, and just you see them losing that much talent. Obviously they refilled, but I just don't think DJ Uiagalelei is that good. I just don't, and I think that they'll face each other, and the experience from Sam Howell and the North Carolina team is just going to mean a lot. And just truthfully, the Clemson Tigers, I don't think are as good as people claim they are to be. And I think that Clemson has a tough opener. They play Georgia week one, and Georgia's a team returning a lot of their star players, but they have dealing with some injuries themselves right now. But I think that they've got just as well as a shot to beat Clemson than North Carolina does, if not better. So I think that truthfully, they'll we'll see how good Clemson really is and how good DJ Uiagalelei is, because Clemson, they've got a chance to lose 3 games this year, which is a rarity when you talk about Clemson football. But I think that they've got that's possibly can happen, and it wouldn't surprise me at all. And they'll face North Carolina in the ACC championship. I have no doubt that those will be the two teams playing for it. If both those teams, take care of business, which they should. ACC is not very tough of a schedule, and if they don't, then either way, both those teams are overrated. But I just don't think Clemson's that good. I think North Carolina is better. That's why I have North Carolina at 3. Clemson's a lot lower than some may expect. And number 4, 24/7 Sports has Ohio State, and I have Georgia at number 4. Ohio State, they have the best receiving core in college football right now. Them and Alabama, their receiving cores go hand in hand together. And I don't know if there's one better than the other, but they're pretty close. And might want to say Ohio State has a better receiving core because of the experience, Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave, but they also have some young stars in Jackson Smith-Njigba, G. Scott Jr., and Emeka Ukebe, the recruit. And I think that they've got obviously great depth at wide receiver, but C.J. Stroud is no Justin Fields. He will not be able to do what Justin Fields did at Ohio State at all, and that's just why I don't think Ohio State is as good as people say they are. I really don't. I think that he's not good at all. I think Quinn Ewers possibly, when he comes in, could maybe, you know, distribute the ball well to those star receivers, but I just think this year will not be a good year for Ohio State. I think that they'll probably still win the Big Ten just because the lack of competition in the Big Ten, but they're not going to go. I don't see them winning a national championship, and they might make the playoffs, but they're going to be they'll lose in the first round. But number 4 for me, I have Georgia, and the spring game this year was very promising. They had some really good quarterbacks in there, and JT Daniels obviously was a great player, and he played great in that game. And he started off kind of rocky, and it's a spring game, and so yes, it doesn't matter, but also at the same time, it's a good look to see some guys. And a lot of people were expecting JT Daniels, to be the best quarterback in, some may say, college football, but in the SEC. And I think that that's a tough task to be the toughest quarterback in the conference with Matt Corral and Bryce Young and others within that conference as well. But in the country, that's even tougher when you have Sam Howell and Spencer Rattler. Those are the other two guys, really. And all those guys are talented players, even Derek King. They're all within each other. But JT Daniels had really high expectations coming into the spring game. Started out not very good, but after the second half, he calmed down, was accurate, and, throwing dimes out there, completing passes. He looked really good out there, and I was really impressed with that. He wasn't discouraged, and I think that that's very promising for Kirby Smart and the Georgia Bulldogs. He's going to be a good leader of that team next year. Undefeated as a starter last year, really should have started him way earlier on. Think that it would have been a different story for the Alabama game if JT Daniels was a starter of the Georgia Bulldogs that year. Number 5, 24/7 Sports is North Carolina. As I mentioned, I have North Carolina number 3. Number 5, I have Oregon. Oregon had one of the more impressive spring games, if not the most impressive spring game. They looked very good. The quarterback situation will be quite interesting, but the defense is just so strong. You have Kayvon Thibodeau, Justin Flo, all those defensive studs. They're going to be a great defensive team next year. They have quite a tough schedule, though, with having to play Ohio State week 2, but I think they have a really legit shot to knock off Ohio State. If it was last year, I don't think they have any shot in playing and beating Ohio State. But this year, going to the Horseshoe, it's gonna be a close game. But I think that Oregon's really got a shot to do it. And they defense looked very good. They have very good receivers. And Anthony Brown, veteran, been around college football for a while. I think he's going to give Oregon a really good shot to beat Ohio State, and I would not be shocked at all if he did. And because he just takes charge of that team, and the defense is just the strong suit of that team for sure. And it's gonna be interesting to see Ohio State's receivers versus the Oregon secondary, and it's gonna be a lot of fun to watch. Moving on to number 6, the Georgia Bulldogs was number 6 on the 24/7 Sports. Number 6, I have Miami. Miami has to face Alabama in the first game of the season, and it's gonna be a very close game, and I think that Alabama will pull it off. I think Derek King, my opinion, I've said this for a while, is a little overrated, and Alabama's defense this year is gonna be really good, used to the dominance that Alabama normally has at defense, and I think that it's just gonna be too much. Miami will drop at least one game. They're also in the ACC. The ACC be a little more competitive than normal with Clemson, Ohio State, and North Carolina, or excuse me, Clemson, and Miami and North Carolina, those three teams. But I think that I think Miami just, I don't think Derek King can lead his team to a national title, or I don't think he can do like last year. They had a losing record, 6-7, and he was injured in the last game, but still, if Derek King's as good as people are saying, he should not have a 500 record before losing, even though he played most of the last game. But still, Derek King's overrated. That's why I have Iowa State at number 7. They returning Brock Purdy and Breece Hall. Breece Hall had a great year last year, and that just puts them why they're at number 7 for me. And there's no explanation really. They didn't have a great recruiting class at all. They just win football games, and they go out there, do very well, and they're gonna give Oklahoma the best shot they can for the Big 12 championship again, and it's gonna be exciting to watch. Number 8, 24/7 Sports had Iowa State, and I have Clemson at number 8, and obviously many reasons why Iowa State's in the top 10. As just mentioned, all those players coming back, but why is Clemson so low? As I mentioned, DJ Uiagalelei, I just don't believe in him at all. I don't think he's as good as he was proclaimed coming out of high school, and I think that he can't throw on the run at all, and he has to be set in stone to throw the ball. He does have great arm strength and good accuracy, but that's if he's not being pressured. And he's never had to be uncomfortable in high school. I mean, the teams he's played with in high school are insane, sending double-digit amount of guys to college D1 levels. And I think that he just hasn't been uncomfortable in high school, and it's going to be a rude awakening for him. And he really didn't impress me versus Notre Dame. They lost, and obviously Notre Dame was not that good. If Clemson can turn around and blow them out in the ACC championship game, so and obviously almost lost to Boston College. Boston College is not a very good team, but I just don't think DJ Uiagalelei is going to be the answer for Clemson, and they're gonna have 2 years with him, and I don't think they'll win. It will be a what? It won't be they won't win a national title in the next 2 years, and that's for sure. Number 9, 24/7 Sports had Oregon. At my number 9 spot, I have Ohio State, and as I mentioned, it comes down to the quarterback play. C.J. Stroud just not gonna do well with just no experience at all. Yes, he's gonna have good receivers, but I just don't see him performing well in with Ohio State. Yes, he's gonna have all the star power in the world, but do I really think that he can lead his team to compete in the playoffs? No, I think that there's easily at least 4 teams better than them, and if they make the playoffs because of their lack of competition in their conference, then they'll lose in the first game. I don't care who it is. They'll lose. I guarantee it. C.J. Stroud is not meant for the big stage at all, and cannot perform in tight situations. Number 10, 24/7 Sports had Notre Dame. And I haven't really seen much about Notre Dame this year. They obviously lost Ian Book. It's why they're not in my top 10. I have Cincinnati at number 10. And, last year I had a great year. They're returning their quarterback, same coach. A lot of times you see a smaller school who had a great season's coach leave, but returning Jerome Ford as well. And I think that Notre Dame, I think they compete every year, so I don't think it's not that I don't like Notre Dame, I just like Cincinnati more. And I think that really that just Notre Dame lost a lot of their best players this year, and Cincinnati's returning a lot of them. So that's why I have Cincinnati above Notre Dame. That will wrap it up for today's video. If you guys have not already, please leave a like down below, subscribe, and share this with your friends. Thank you.